You leave the house every morning, and your dog watches you go, tail slowing, eyes tracking you to the door, and then you're gone. So what does he think happens next? Because from your pet's perspective, you don't just leave, you vanish. You step through a portal and cease to exist. There's no concept of work or errands or an hour at the gym. There's only you, and then not you, and the version of reality your pet constructs to explain that disappearance is a lot more interesting than you'd expect. We know more about animal cognition now than at any point in human history. Researchers have spent decades running experiments, scanning brains and recording behavior to figure out what actually goes on inside the minds of dogs, cats, and other domestic animals. And what they've found challenges almost everything most people assume. Your pets aren't just waiting for you, they're thinking, they're remembering, and in some cases, they're worrying. Here's what the science actually tells us. Let's start with dogs, because dogs are the most studied domestic animal on the planet. And the results are genuinely surprising. When you leave, your dog doesn't experience time the way you do. You might be gone for 2 hours and feel like it was nothing. To your dog, the first 30 minutes after you leave is the most stressful period of the entire absence. Cortisol levels spike, heart rate goes up. Some dogs pace, vocalize, or destroy things. This isn't bad behavior. It's the physiological response to losing the most important thing in their world. But here's where it gets interesting. Dogs do have some sense of duration. A 2011 study had owners leave their dogs for different lengths of time and then return. When owners came back after 2 hours, dogs showed significantly more excited greeting behavior than when owners returned after 30 minutes. The dogs could tell the difference. They weren't just reacting to "person came back." They were reacting to "person was gone a long time." What they can't do is understand where you went. You can't explain your office to a dog. You can't tell them you'll be back at 6. So they fill in the gap with what they know, which is mostly smell and routine. Your dog has almost certainly mapped your daily schedule through scent. Human scent on furniture, clothing, and air fades at a predictable rate throughout the day. Researchers believe dogs can actually smell what time it is by tracking how much of your scent remains in the environment. When your scent hits a certain concentration, your dog starts anticipating your return. They may position themselves near the door. They may become more alert. Not because they heard your car, but because your smell told them you were close to coming back. So what do they think you're doing? The honest answer is, they don't form a narrative the way we do. They don't picture you at a desk. They don't imagine your commute. They experience your absence as a state, not a story. But the state has emotional content. It carries anxiety and anticipation, and something that functions very much like longing. Cats operate on a completely different system, which will surprise nobody who has ever owned one. Cats were long considered asocial animals who simply tolerated human presence. That model has collapsed. Multiple studies now show that cats form secure attachment bonds with their owners, track their owners' locations, and respond to owner absence with behavioral changes that look a lot like stress. They're just much better at hiding it. A 2019 study at Oregon State University put cats through a standard attachment test. Owners brought their cats into an unfamiliar room, then left for 2 minutes, then returned. Most cats used their owner as a secure base, exploring more when the owner was present and settling faster after the owner returned. The cats weren't indifferent. They were managing their anxiety. What cats likely think you're doing during the day falls into a different category than dogs, though. Cats are territorial animals. Their world is defined more by space than by social hierarchy. When you leave, you aren't abandoning a pack member. You're temporarily exiting the territory. Cats probably experience your absence as a change in their environment's safety profile rather than a social loss. That said, cats do track you specifically. Research has confirmed that cats recognize their owners' voices over strangers' voices. They know your smell, your footstep pattern, and your behavioral rhythms. When you come home, a cat that ignores you isn't being indifferent. It's often displaying a behavior called passive greeting, acknowledging your return without performing the dramatic display that dogs put on. The cat knows you came back. It just isn't going to make a whole thing out of it. Now let's talk about what pets do with all that time while you're gone, because it isn't nothing. Dogs sleep a lot. On average, dogs sleep between 12 and 14 hours per day. And in the absence of stimulation, that number goes up. But sleep for dogs isn't passive downtime. Dogs experience REM sleep, the deep cycle where dreaming occurs. If you've ever watched a dog sleep and noticed the leg twitching, the soft vocalizations, the rapid eye movements, that's active dreaming. Researchers believe dogs dream about their daily experiences. Their brain activity during sleep closely mirrors their activity during waking tasks. A dog that spent the morning playing fetch probably dreams about running. A dog that met a new dog at the park probably processes that encounter during sleep. Your absence and the emotional weight it carries almost certainly appears in your dog's dream life. Cats dream too, for what it's worth. And given that cats spend up to 16 hours of sleep, there's a lot of dreaming happening. Beyond sleep, pets that are left with environmental stimulation spend their time doing something researchers call ambient monitoring. They're tracking sounds, smells, and changes in the environment. A car that slows near the house, a neighbor's routine, the shift in afternoon light. Pets build detailed mental maps of what normal looks like, and they notice deviations. This is part of why dogs often seem to know when something is wrong before you do. They haven't been sitting around bored. They've been paying attention to everything. There's one more thing the research points to, and it reframes the whole question. When your pet thinks about you, they're not thinking about an abstract idea of you. They're thinking about a specific sensory profile. Your smell is probably the most important single piece. Dogs have smell receptors that are roughly 40 times more sensitive than ours. The scent you leave behind carries enormous amounts of information, including your stress levels, your health status, and your emotional state. Dogs have been documented detecting changes in human cortisol through scent alone. What this means is that your pet isn't just waiting for you to come back. They're reading you constantly. When you do walk through that door, your dog knows within seconds whether you had a hard day. Not because they can read your face, though dogs are remarkably good at that too. Because you smell like cortisol, or you don't. You are, to your pet, an enormously complex sensory event. And your absence is the negative space around that event. The silence where all that information used to be. So, what do pets think we do all day? They think we go somewhere important. They think we come back. They track our return through smell and rhythm and routine. They dream about us. They miss us in whatever way their emotional architecture allows for missing someone. They don't know what an office is. They don't know what traffic is. They have no model for why you disappear for 8 hours and then reappear smelling like a conference room and a sad desk lunch. But they know you. They know your smell and your sound and the specific pattern of your footsteps on the stairs. They know the difference between the you who had a good day and the you who didn't. They know, somewhere in that deeply wired brain, that you always come back. And when you do walk through that door and your dog loses their mind with joy, or your cat wanders over and bumps your leg with their head, that's not a simple reflex. That's relief. That's recognition. That's what happens when the most important sensory event in their world walks back through the door.